All right, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Melville, New York, and thank you to Ashley Little, our host. From here in Melville, it's HTM Architects and Engineers, and Ashley is the Senior Project Scientist. She's also part of the Women's Leadership ERG. So we welcome you here and thank you for hosting this wonderful seminar called Savvy Women, Smart Investors. So we have a number of people. This is a hybrid model. We are live here in Melville, but we're also live on the internet. And this is being streamed. This is also being recorded for future use. Here in the room from Island Federal, I'd like to welcome our Assistant Vice President of Bank Operations. That is Catherine Roger from Island Federal. If you have any questions banking-wise, we'll be here throughout. And then afterwards, there will be Q&A at the end of the presentation. Also, we have Vinny Accardi. He's here from Community and Business Development over there from Island Federal. My name is Larry Dunn. I am the Senior Director of Membership Experience and Sales for Island Federal, which means that if you're a member of Island, we report to you and I report to you, and we want to make sure you always have a good membership experience. We are not for profit. Banks are for profit. We are not for profit. We've been serving the Long Island community for over 68 years. We started as the credit union for Milco, and we expanded our charter to Nassau, Suffolk, and eventually Brooklyn. We do have 11 branches. One is in Brooklyn and Bay Ridge, and the other 10 are in Nassau and Suffolk County. We are also the financial partner for Stony Brook Hospital and Stony Brook Medicine, which includes the new Children's Hospital. So we do a lot of great work on Long Island. We do a lot of work with Long Island Cares, which is the Harry Chapin Food Bank. I'm actually the Vice President of the Board of Directors for Long Island Cares. And for the past number of years, we've been serving those that have food insecurity. That's 277,000, sadly, here in Nassau and Suffolk. So we do a lot of great work, including we do financial literacy in the community. Every year, we give $50,000 in college scholarships to 11 high school seniors in Nassau, Suffolk, and Brooklyn. And that's only to the seniors, and they have to be qualified to go to an accredited four-year college or university. And we do this every year since 1992. But in the community, as financial literacy is not part of what they call core academic curriculum, in fourth grade, what is part of core academic curriculum is learning the history of Long Island. But they teach math, economics, and trig, but they don't teach financial literacy. Florida just became the first state in this country to actually offer a law that actually you have to have a one credit class in high school on financial literacy. We can't graduate from high school. And last week, the governor of the state of Connecticut just actually passed that same law. There are 17 states pending that same legislation. New York is not one of them. So part of our mission statement is to be in the community. Mission statement is to be part of the community and out and about, speaking to financial literacy. But also what Catherine does very well is credit counseling, and we do a lot of analysis and consultative analysis from a banking point of view. So I'm about to introduce to you later after the presentation from our good friends Tom and Sheridan from MFS Distributor. We actually have Robert Gibson and Gary Ginsberg. They are from Ameritrade and Ameriprise, and they will be doing Q&A at the end of the presentation. So to present Sheridan, I'd like to bring up Tom Schmidt, who's the Senior Regional Consultant for MFS Fund Distributors Incorporated.
Thank you. And thanks to everyone for joining us here today. My name is Tom Schmidt, and it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here presenting on the topic of Savvy Women, Smart Investing. MFS is a company out of Boston, Massachusetts that was actually recognized for creating the mutual fund 99 years ago in the roaring 20s in 1924. To the point where $10,000 invested in that mutual fund that still exists today is worth about $57 million. So if you invested $10,000 99 years ago, you're probably down at St. Charles Cemetery, and you'd be really happy to go visit somebody that would have done that and turned $10,000 into $57 million. I grew up in Melville, Long Island, about a quarter of a mile away from here. My first job application that I ever made was to H2M when it was right down the street for a summer job opportunity. I grew up on a farm, the Schmidt's Farms. There's still some in existence that sell pumpkins. So for anybody that goes to the Schmidt's Pumpkin Farm right down the street, it's been there for many, many, many years. So this topic is near and dear to me, Savvy Women, Smart Investing, because when I was the age of 17 on my family farm, which is where Costco is on Route 110 right now, my father passed away of a heart attack, tragically, on our farm. And it forced me and my mom, who's still alive, to learn a lot and become really financially responsible and financially literate really fast. His dad kept everything, right? And he was there in the morning, gone in the afternoon. And we were placed in a situation where a mother and two kids, 48 years old, needed to learn where everything was. And she didn't know. She took time to figure that out with her financial planner, who she still works with today. And she determined that in order to maximize her financial opportunity and Social Security, she needed to go back to college to get a second master's degree because she wanted to become a librarian, because she went to St. John's University. And it was all part of the financial planning process associated with being able to retire and afford it financially. I'll be happy to say that 3 months ago, Mom celebrated her 30th anniversary as a librarian at the Melville Library, right down the street. And she succeeded, now 83, 84 years old, at that retirement dream and maximizing her Social Security. But I know what it's like to be in a situation, in a circumstance where you wake up in the morning and Dad's there, Dad takes care of everything. And then in the afternoon, he's not. And we had to learn everything along the way. And we did make some mistakes. And some of those mistakes were costly. But thankfully, in working with our financial advisor, who she still works with today, she was able to comfortably be in a position financially to survive and support her children and pay for their colleges, even me, which is exciting. Today, Sheridan Culhane, who's a senior strategist from MFS out of Boston, has come in to shed some more light onto the topics associated with savvy women, smart investing, and women in investing. Because very often women find themselves in the middle, caring for an above generation and caring for a younger generation. And the balls that have to be kept in the air are numerous, and in some cases indefinite. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is introduce Sheridan Culhane from MFS, and I want to make sure that everyone can hear us on the line. I guess they can't pipe in?
They can hear you.
They can hear us. Great. Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us here today.
I love getting together for women's events. I have 3 sisters. I have 2 daughters, 4 nieces. So this always feels like home for me. It's my comfort zone. And it's something that I've become really passionate about. Over 80% of women say they don't know how to invest or to choose a financial product, that they wouldn't call themselves an investor. But how many of you contribute to your retirement account? Then you are an investor. You don't have to be a stock picker or constantly making trades in your account in order to be one. That's just one form of investing. You don't have to do it that way. In studies, they actually show that women's portfolios tend to perform slightly better than men's over the long term because they don't mess with it as much. So you are an investor. You've been doing this for years. It just sometimes may feel scary, intimidating, and complicated because we as women, we've been systematically cut out of the conversation for decades. Now, what I have in front of me here is an excerpt from a home economics textbook from back in the 1950s. And it's called The Good Housewife. Have any of you seen this? And this is what women were taught in school back then. This is what they were told to do and aspire to be. I'm going to read you some of my favorites. So the first one, make him comfortable. Have a cool or warm drink ready for him. Have him lean back in a comfortable chair or suggest that he lie down in the bedroom. Arrange his pillow and offer to take off his shoes. Speak in a low, soothing voice. Allow him to relax and unwind. That's all one rule. Number 2, minimize all noise. At the time of his arrival, eliminate all noise from the washer, dryer, or vacuum. Encourage the children to be quiet. And then finally, we have some do nots. Don't greet him with problems and complaints. Don't complain if he's late for dinner. Count this as a minor problem compared to what he may have gone throughout the day. Now, whenever I read those, I'm reminded of some advice that my grandmother gave to me when I first got married. She told me if I was ever running late preparing dinner for my partner, David, that I should throw onions and garlic into a boiling pot of water because then it would at least smell as if dinner is on its way. So thank goodness for me and for all of us here today the 1970s came, because that's when things really started to change for women as they challenged the good housewife rules and they started entering the workforce. And if we compare back then to now, they have changed. Women are now out earning men in terms of college degrees and advanced degrees. Women used to only make up about 30% of the workforce. Now it's over 50%. And more women are becoming their family's primary breadwinner. So things are changing, which is great. But the reality is that they're not changing fast enough, because 90% of us will be solely responsible for our financial future at some point throughout our lives. Majority of the time, this happens as a result of a loved one passing or a relationship ending, meaning after a death or a divorce, because we as women, we tend to live longer, and because of the divorce rates. Now, from reading studies and from speaking with women of all ages all across the country, I cannot tell you how many have said how difficult it was to not only deal with that loss, but then on top of it, to have to wrap their head around their financial situation, most for the first time in their entire lives. How many regretted not getting involved sooner? How many wish that they could have learned on their own terms, right? Because they wanted to, rather than because they had to. So that's why I'm really excited that you're all here today. You're choosing to be part of this right now. So my goal is to build your financial confidence by providing you some information about some of the things that can go wrong for women at different life stages, so you can make the choice to have these conversations now. Understand where you are, that you have options, and how a financial professional can help you decide what's most appropriate depending on your personal and financial goals. And because we are women and we still tend to take on all of those caregiving responsibilities in addition to everything else that we do, we're going to cover it all. We're going to talk about how you can raise more financially capable kids and grandkids. We'll talk about how to better understand and maybe even anticipate the needs of your parents and loved ones as they age. And then finally, we'll get into you and go through some of the big threats we face regarding our own security. So first up, kids and grandkids. Anybody with kids or grandkids that are 18 or under? Okay, two good books for you. The first one is called Raising Financially Fit Kids by Jolene Godfrey. It's Godfrey. And this one teaches parents how to teach their children about the value of an earned dollar, so they don't go and spend all of their babysitting money on candy like I used to do growing up. It is all sorts of sort of tips, strategies, games that you can do with children to teach them more about money as they age. So that's a good one for 12 and under. For those of you with kids or grandkids in the 12 to 18 range, different book, it's called The Official Money Guide for Teenagers. And this covers everything, saving, spending, investing, all these really important concepts that you want to expose children to from a young age. That way they have that good sort of foundation to then build off of. For those of you who are or have kids or grandkids in the 18 to 30 range, there are two big financial mistakes that young adults make. The first is not understanding what impacts their credit score. And the second is not taking advantage of their retirement plan through work. So for the credit score, you want to talk to your kids about what it is and how to maintain a healthy one. So things like paying bills on time, keeping balances low, only opening up credit when you need it. The difference between a hard inquiry and a soft inquiry. And most importantly, to actually check it. They want to do this once a year. Most credit card issuers or lenders, they offer it for free nowadays, but you can also use some free credit scoring websites Two of them are on the screen right now, creditkarma.com and annualcreditreport.com. For the retirement plan, you want to make sure that you or your kids or your grandkids are taking advantage of whatever plan their company offers, if they offer one, especially if there's any sort of matching element to it. They're literally leaving money on the table if they don't take advantage of these. You want to talk to them about stepping up or increasing their contributions every single time that they get a raise, with the end goal of maybe maxing that out each and every year. These retirement plans, they really are one of the simplest ways for young adults to start accumulating wealth and then begin to experience the power of compounding returns over time. Finally, for those of you who are or have family members that are 30 and over, another good book for you, it's called Simple Wealth, Inevitable Wealth by Nick Murray. And this one is meant for people that know that they should be saving for their future, but they may not know how or where to start. So he talks about the importance of things like patience, discipline, and keeping a long-term perspective. It's a relatively simple read, but a pretty important one for anyone that's looking to learn more about successful money management. Now, when it comes to our children, we're prepared to take care of them. We understand this responsibility. What's catching a lot of people off guard is the need to care for their aging loved ones. Odds are your family is going to need your help. 68% of Americans believe that they're going to be able to rely on their families to meet their long-term care needs. And 92% of people that are caregivers, they're also financial caregivers, whether that's through directly contributing to the cost for the care or by managing the finances. Now, estimates for these costs, they range. It depends on where you live and the type of care, but on average, people tend to spend between $5,000 to $10,000 a month. In addition, the amount of time that people spend giving unpaid caring for a loved one typically is about 100 to 150 hours a month. Now, I don't share those numbers to scare you. That's not my intention at all. What I'm trying to do here is prepare you. Because too often for years, as we have these conversations with family members, we hear things like, we're good, we're fine, everything's okay. And the conversation tends to end there. Then seemingly out of the blue one day, you realize it's not. They need and have needed your help. Majority of the time, the person that they end up turning to in these situations is a woman. 75% of caregivers are female. So to prevent yourself from being blindsided by these costs later in life, as so many people are, my suggestion to you would be to have these caregiving conversations with your loved ones right now. Have them early and have them often. You want to make sure you know things like where their estate planning documents are and check that they're in good order. You want to ask them for logins and passwords to different accounts. That way, if they slip and fall and are caught in the hospital for a few days, you can continue to pay bills for them. You want to ask them if they have a safety deposit box, what they want to do with their pet, where they want to live. And you need to know what financial resources that they have. It's the only way to know if this is something that you may have to build into your own financial plan. The longer you wait to start these conversations, the more difficult they tend to get. Now, if you've already been met with some resistance here, a book that somebody recommended to me years ago, it's called How to Say It to Seniors by David Solie. It's S-O-L-I-E. He's a geriatric psychologist and goes into some of the roadblocks that people hit when they're trying to help older loved ones. which if you haven't had to deal with yet, it can be a little bit of a frustrating situation because oftentimes what they say, it's very different than what they mean. So he talks about why people act the way that they do and how to most effectively deal with them, how you can help them without making them feel small. Now, if you yourself want to start to prepare this stuff, there's a great resource. It's called Family Love Letter, the Family Love Letter. And it's a comprehensive planning tool that allows for the collection of all of this different type of stuff. And even includes some suggestions on things that have worked well for other families, like, for example, writing an ethical will, which is one in which you sort of explain what your hopes and dreams are for each one of your beneficiaries. You can order a workbook at familyloveletter.com. All right, now let's get to my favorite part of the conversation, and that's you. How can you be more financially savvy? There are three great challenges we face regarding our own security. The first is rising healthcare costs. The second is making good Social Security decisions. And the last is confidently knowing how to invest. So for those healthcare costs, no surprise to hear that costs, they are going up. In fact, they've about quadrupled in the past 50 years alone. And what we need to be concerned about as women is that we actually cost more. And it's not because we consume any more healthcare than the average man in a year, but it's because we tend to live longer. So to help mitigate some of these costs later in life, something that you may want to consider is long-term care insurance. 60% of people over the age of 65, they end up needing some sort of long-term care, but only about a third of them have money set aside to pay for it. So this could be something worth exploring, not only for yourself, but if you think you're going to be one of those people that's financially responsible for their parents, could also be something worth exploring for that. Another healthcare related expense that can sneak up on women and add to costs throughout retirement are changes to Medicare premiums. Now, because a lot of women are single or become suddenly single in retirement, even though in either one of those situations, your income, it typically drops, the amount that you pay in Medicare premiums can actually pretty substantially go up. It's not unheard of for people to go from paying no surcharges to paying something like an average increase of over 120%. So while we can't make these costs disappear, you can control them by paying attention to what increases your modified adjusted gross income and what doesn't. Because that's what will determine what tax bracket that you're in and therefore what those surcharges are. So the solution or a solution to the Medicare problem is diversification. It's making sure that you have tax-free, tax-deferred, taxable accounts. That way you have options for where you can pull income from throughout retirement. A lot of times when we think of sort of traditional retirement income options, my mind goes to IRAs, dividends, pension, Social Security, all of which increase your modified adjusted gross income. What we forget about are the things that don't. Things like HSAs, Roth 401ks, longevity and life insurance. So you want to make sure that when you sit down with a financial professional, that you talk to them about all of your current holdings. That way they have the full picture as to where you can pull that income from later in life. For Social Security, one of the biggest mistakes, in my opinion, that people make financially over the age of 60 is not understanding their Social Security options. And that's because Social Security, it's complicated. How old you are, how long you've worked, how much you've earned, your relationship status, single, married, divorced, remarried, widowed. Those are just some of the things that can impact your benefit options. Social Security really is one of those things that comes down to the specifics for each individual person. So I can't walk you through everything, but I will share with you the 3 most common and costly mistakes that I see people make. And the first is applying early. In my house, we grew up with the mantra, if you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. If you're late, it's not good. So I always want to be early to things. Early in my mind means good. Well, if you are trying to maximize your Social Security benefit, you may not want to apply early. If you apply for Social Security at the age of 62 or any time before your full retirement age, which is age 66 or 67, depending on when you were born, you get a reduced benefit. You get a lower amount. This is true for your own benefit, the spousal, and the survivor. Second one, this is for divorced people. The general rule is that if you are married for 10 years or longer, you're eligible to receive the spousal and survivor benefits off of your ex or exes. So 10 years is the key. Now we see this impacting people in 2 ways. The first, don't assume the Social Security Administration knows everything. They may have no idea that you were married from the age of 22 to 33. You may not have even spoken a word to that individual since. You could still be entitled to that benefit.
As long as you're not remarried.
There are certain rules with it, depends on when you remarry and when all this stuff happened. But yes, but remember, whatever they send you, you need to prove marriages and divorces. And then the other way that I see this impacting people, and you can take it or leave it, but it's the honest to goodness truth. I cannot tell you how many women have come up to me and told me that they wish that they knew about this 10-year rule, because on paper, they would have held on to that marriage for an extra 2 years. 1 year, a few months. It sounds funny, but the rule is 10 years or you get nothing. And then the final way that I see this impacting people, this is for married couples. You really want to make sure that the highest income earner, whoever that is, that they make sure that they understand that their decision as to when to apply for Social Security, how it's going to impact the surviving spouse for the rest of their life. Now, I had heard that before, but it never really clicked for me until one of my friends, Doug, he told me about his grandparents. Now, Doug's grandfather applied for Social Security at the age of 62, knowing full well he was going to get a reduced benefit. He had a reason. None of the men in his family had lived past the age of 67. So he wanted that money and he wanted it immediately. And sure enough, he did die at the age of 67. But what he didn't realize was that his wife, who was 2 years younger than him, that it locked her into a lower survivor benefit for the rest of her life. She was a stay-at-home mom. That seemingly small decision that he made ended up having an almost 4-decade impact on his surviving spouse because she lived until 103 years old. So the takeaway for Social Security is to always speak with a financial professional before applying. Let them arm you with the questions and the information to bring to the Social Security Administration. That way you make sure that you get the maximum benefit that you're entitled to. All right, we're in the home stretch now, confidently knowing how to invest. These are sort of my 10 rules, my other coworkers that came up with this presentation. We aggregated ours. I'm just going to share with you my big 3. So the first one, diversification, both in terms of the account types, like we talked about beforehand, and in terms of what you're investing in. Stocks versus bonds versus cash. US versus international, high yield versus high grade. Getting that mix right and managing it over time is one of the best ways to ensure that you meet your long-term goals in a responsible way. Second one, consider staying in the market even when you're scared. At our home office in Boston, we always have CNBC playing on all the monitors there. And the joke is that it stands for the constantly negative business channel because they always seem to be reporting one bad thing after another. Remember, the basic goal of every single investor is to buy low and sell high. So for buying low, think about going into your favorite store and getting a shirt on sale. That's buying low. For selling high, think about your house. Ideally, you probably want to sell it for more than what you paid for it. Now, this makes sense, but when it comes to our money and investments, people let their emotions get in the way and they tend to make the opposite decision. So when you see the headlines about how great everything is, that's when you want to invest. And then when you see those scary ones, that's where you want to pull your money out and head for the hills. So resist this urge as best you can. Overreacting to market volatility is one of the most common ways that financial plans are thrown off. And then the final one that I follow, last one listed on the screen here, stay educated. And you guys can give yourself a big check mark off for this because showing up today means that you're already committed to this one. Now, I know that I went over a ton with you today, but I do have one final ask, and that's that you pick one. Out of everything that I shared with you today, pick one thing that you can do to put yourself in a better financial situation than you are today. Give yourself an end goal by the end of September. You can let your financial professional know what that one thing is so they can help you complete that. It's what they're there for. It's to help you and your loved ones achieve your long-term financial goals, whatever those may be. Now, before we open it up for some Q&A for Gary and Robert, I had a friend share with me a different article from the 1950s the other day. And it's just as hilarious and horrifying as The Good Housewife Rules. But this one's called 129 Ways to Get a Husband. And it has tips like have your car break down at strategic places. Wear a Band-Aid. People always ask what happened. Stand in a corner and cry softly. Chances are good they'll come over to find out what's wrong. Get a sunburn. Nothing else, just get a sunburn. And then my favorite one, stand on a busy street corner with a lasso. So clearly things are different nowadays, and I, for one, couldn't be more grateful for that. So I hope you enjoyed our time together. I hope you learned something new. And with that, I hope you're at least leaving with a smile on your face. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheridan. Great job. Thank you very much. We have Robert Gibson and Gary Ginsberg here from Ameriprise. Does anybody have any questions at all? Yes.
So what is the best way to pick a financial advisor? Because that comes up all the time. I'm an HR, people ask, where can I get some help? And I think it's very often, you're looking for a friend or a relative or somebody that used somebody before. Is there like a criteria that you want to look for as a buyer of those services?
Great question. So for those that are listening on the webinar only, because the radius of the mic only goes so far, the question was, how can you pick the best financial advisor? Yeah, you have to.
That's for sure. I should have been in this meeting.
Hi, my name is Rob Gibson. I'm with Ameriprise, and also have an office at the Island Federal Credit Union in Hop Mug. So to answer your question, that's a great question, and I think it really is something to really think about. It's not something that you want to take lightly if you're going to sit and talk with a financial professional. I think that there are a number of questions that you'd want to ask a financial professional. How long have they been in business? What happens, in your particular situation? I know in my practice, I take a deep dive into really understanding exactly what your particular goals and objectives are. What's important to you about money specifically? And then we go from there and put a plan together. But you also have to feel comfortable with that plan. If it's something that you're not going to feel comfortable with, then I would go on to, interviewing it, at least one or two other people to find somebody that you're comfortable with. I would just leave it at that. That you have to really find somebody that you're comfortable with.
What about fees?
Yep, that's a question too. There are a lot of no fee advisors. In my opinion, no fee, no advice. It's
What does that mean?
well, there are a lot of people that don't charge fees.
So how do they make money?
Usually through at Ameriprise, there's a couple of different ways that an advisor can charge a fee. They either charge a flat fee for a plan. They can also make money charging a wrap fee to manage your money, or a combination of both commissions. That's basically there's usually just the three ways that an advisor can make money.
I do want to mention that for those that are watching and listening on the webinar, there is a chat feature. If you have a question, we are monitoring the chat. And by the way, in lieu of a Band-Aid, he wore this as a conversation. Thank you,
I
Cheryl.
left my lasso at home.
Any other questions?
And I would say, just to add on to that, there are different types of wealth management programs and firms that exist out there. Some are no service at all, where you walk in, you want to do it all yourself, and you can do that at a discount, what they call discount broker. And then others are more associated with wanting to manage your money. And then there are a few firms in the industry, of which Ameriprise happens to probably be the preeminent one. And I urge you to do your homework on this, that focus on the financial planning aspect of it first and work towards all of the pieces of the pie. But a lot of firms don't focus on the financial planning aspect. I think that's probably why Ameriprise is here. Because the more important thing to me and my family was, will I make it? What are the financial blind spots my mom is going to face along the way? Of which we had no idea until we started working with someone that could answer those questions. We didn't need someone that said, oh, buy this stock and this bond. That was the furthest thing from our interest at that point in time. It was more the ability to have that financial plan and understand what the path is going to look like along the way. And I think those are the important aspects of when you meet with somebody who's a financial advisor to consider. And also, quite frankly, no one ever comes into my house to do anything in my house, a plumber, electrician, whatever, without a referral. I think it's important to think about the referral of someone who you can find that you can trust. And obviously, Robert, in association with the Island Financial Credit Union and Ameriprise Financial Advisors, being here today is a pretty good place to start as one of the individuals. But, you always want to consider your options. Think about that.
So many of the topics that Shannon brought up, like Tom was saying, you could walk into any kind of brokerage firm and say, hey, listen, I just got a check, or I got this windfall of money, what can I do with it? And there are going to be plenty of advisors that say, oh, take a look at this fund, or take a look at that, or maybe we'll go into a bank and just get a CD or something. But it's the true advisor that's going to sit down with you, and people, before they start talking about where to invest the money, they're going to ask you what's important to you about this. And the conversation is going to lead to some of the topics that Shannon brought up. How old are you? Are you married? Do you have children, grandchildren? Have they had that conversation about Social Security, long-term care, life insurance? There's a whole myriad of different topics that really should be discussed before you invest $1. So I'll just leave it at that. That it's really important to find somebody that you feel comfortable with, that you've felt that they've asked you the right questions to put that plan together for you for the future and for your family.
Any other questions? Anything in the chat, Vinny?
Oh, last time.
Okay, great. Okay,
Can I ask you guys a question? What prompted you to come to the meeting? What was important to you about coming to the meeting today?
Learn more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was there anything in particular that you wanted to walk away with?
Nothing in particular, but I've never heard of long-term care insurance. I know
Okay.
life insurance, but that was a new one for me, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Anybody else?
are there any topics you would like to cover in the future? Yes,
Maybe investing in like the stock market, you guys on that.
investing in the stock market? No, that's a great one, thank you. We've done some sessions on social security that have been actually eye-opening. I didn't know about the stop-start rule, that you actually have one shot. If you do start social security, you only have one shot to stop it and restart it. Little things like that. Does that interest you, social security?
I found that out from my mom. When
Yeah.
She's like, I applied for social security. I was like, all I knew was you didn't need it, and the longer you wait, the better. And I was
Yeah.
like, no, don't do it, go and change it. And she's like, are you sure? I was like, just tell them you don't want it. And they said she was allowed to do it that one time,
Within the 12 months as well.
but she didn't even get her first check yet.
Yeah.
And so she was able to do that pause and then.
That was an important thing to us to understand for my mom, who's still collecting social security, which I had no idea about, but just to the point before about the divorce. If you're divorced, you can remarry after the age of 60 and keep that claim 60, keep that claim on your ex. If you do get remarried, you lose that claim for the period of time if you're with a new spouse. But God forbid that would end in some sort of tragic fashion, death, divorce, whatever, you can maintain the claim to the original spouse. So very often that, begs the question, well, then how do I, if I can always get access to my ex's social security, how do I go about telling them? I can't answer that
Why is it like that?
question. I say that in jest, but I can't stress it more. Understanding and knowing what your social security options are going to be when you're in a stressful circumstance like the one presented to my family is so utterly important. And for you, it will be the same, tragedy or no tragedy, just knowing how that folds into the situation of your retirement puzzle. It helps you then determine what age is best for you because there is no one size fits all for anybody. I can't make a recommendation for anybody in this room as it relates to that, but understanding it's really helpful. Great.
Somebody chimed in and said that covering different kinds of savings accounts or CDs in the future would be a future topic.
Okay. Great, that's great for us to know.
I might think HSAs, using an HSA as a retirement vehicle, I think too often we put the money in just to take it out.
Yeah.
So I think there's value in learning about using that investment as something for retirement.
I know that when we presented in schools, and Sheridan, you actually touched on this, the kids don't understand credit, they don't understand what it is, they don't know how to establish it, they how to improve it. And we help, and Catherine, what she does, she's certified in credit counseling, but this, some of the topics that, and the teachers ask us to come in because it's not part of our academic curriculum. They get kind of a snow day out of it because we actually built a presentation for a 40-minute high school class, but we've been in the middle schools and in the colleges and university, and it's scary what they don't know. So we appreciate what you presented here today. And for those that are on the webinar, I do want to thank Sheridan and Tom for this and from Ameriprise. We do have Robert and Gary. If you have any follow-up questions, there will be an email that will be followed up to all of you. Ashley Little, thank you very much to H2M, Architects and Engineers, and also to that wonderful group, the Women's Leadership ERG. Thank you for sponsoring and hosting this with us. On behalf of everybody at Island Federal, thank you so much for your time and have a great day.